In a moment, we'll start collecting clues as to the whys, the whats, and the wheres.
And I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Can you hear that? We will not end the nightmare, we'll only exploit it.
We might all be dead if Pope Francis doesn't get well. That's according to me and a few other crazies who fear the end times missive known as the prophecy of the popes. We'll tell you why you should fear for your life in just a minute. Should we have ignored the pyramid power boosters from back in the day? Maybe not. According to new science from Russia, there might actually be some spark to the mystical polyhedron. Finally, California may be stealing Bigfoot. We'll tell you about moves by state legislatures to claim Bigfoot all for themselves in our Off-Normal segment at the end of the show. With that, I'm your host, Fiasco Jones. Welcome to Oddnormal's What in the Weird, which is basically every conversation you had with that weird one uncle, just with a musical intro. I'm joined by my co-host, Cold Coffee, who's really hoping we'll start recording on Thursdays so he can start learning how to scuba, because, as he likes to say over and over, scuba is what this is all about. Okay, Cold Coffee, old Cold Coffee, you and your scuba.
Scuba. It's what it's all about.
Apparently, that's your life's calling. Now, but in reality, though, you do have a big moment coming up. Because if
not involved with scuba, but closely related to scuba.
Yeah. Another branch of your life that's less scuba related, even though I'm probably less important because it's not scuba. But if no one knows, you are also the host, creator of the MMA Roadshow.
Yes,
and you have a very big anniversary coming up. Tell us about it.
Yes, we just taped episode 518. So in 2 weeks, 2 more episodes, it will be episode 520. So an exact 10 years of podcast shows, consistent every week. 10 years straight. And we're still going, baby. So yeah, we got of course, us being the way we are and so nonchalant, we have nothing planned except for maybe we'll videotape it, maybe we'll do something. The more that we're like is like, well, we'll just figure it out by the next 10 years what we want to do with this thing. But yeah, it's a big one. You've been along the ride for, since the beginning, as well. But yeah, I do remember crazy.
My biggest, I guess. I don't know what you call it, boast, or I guess mistake, lack of faith. My best, my moment of no faith was, I think I had this story that you guys wanted me to tell for the show, and I thought
for a big one, a big milestone.
Yeah, I thought, okay, well, I'll be clever, if you do your 100th episode, then sure, I'll tell my story. And I'm thinking, of course, obviously, you just peter out and just stop doing the show.
You'll never make it to 100.
Yeah. 500 shows later, 500 plus. And I'm like, oh, okay, so yeah, I was very wrong. I
do want that to be known that you can search for the MMA Roadshow episode 100 and hear said story from one Fiasco Jones.
Did some terrible things.
One of the best stories that's ever been told.
Yes.
It's the stuff that should make it onto the show one day. The stuff of lore. There'll be legends talking about it.
Yes. Not to get too far on a tangent, but that it's one of those stories where I was at a company event. This is when I worked for the UFC, and someone told it to me. He's like, did you hear this story about one of these guys who was on the road and it did this XYZ? I'm like, yeah. I did hear that story. It was the weirdest thing hearing my own story told back to me. It was surreal. But yeah.
Unreal.
If you want to hear it too, episode 100, MMA Roadshow.
Episode 100.
And stay tuned in the next couple weeks. Is that right? Couple weeks?
Yeah, 2 more weeks.
2 more weeks. I might make a guest appearance, because I've had so much.
I think that would be wonderful if you wanted to come back on or just come back on for episode 600, or something like that.
You'll never make it to 600.
Challenge accepted. It's so funny. There was somebody one point, some small outlet somewhere, they hit us up and they're like, hey, by the way, you're our winner for most consistent podcast. I was like, bro, you can't give that to us because we're never going to stop. Like, we go every week. I was like, you're going to have to give it to us every year from this point on, because what do? You say, oh, well, we found one that was more consistent
Right.
than you guys.
You slept a day. And
good luck, sir. Good luck finding that one.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I saw a
fun.
statistic somewhere saying that, like, kind of my episode 100 thing, so many episodes or so many podcasts never reach episode 100. They just, they peter out. And so that you've gotten to 500 plus.
Yeah.
I don't know where that leaves you in the great pantheon of podcasts, but it definitely, I think it puts you like in a very rarefied community.
Well, I tell you, the Library of Congress has not reached out yet, but I'm hoping that one day they'll say, sir, we have a shelf just for your episodes. I'm like, sure, don't listen to them. Yeah. Just put them there. Just put them there. Don't listen to them.
Through pure attrition, you will get there. They'll be obligated to for some like, oh, well, shit, he just keeps going and going and going. We have to now. And it's become like a weird freak show. They're not even talking about MMA anymore. They're talking about fucking cereal recipes or something. Like, I don't know.
It could happen. I like cereal.
Yeah. With that, want to hear something strange?
I did something different here.
We have an update from our very first episode. In a groundbreaking revelation, the Pentagon has officially acknowledged an investigation into an egg-shaped, unidentified flying object. This announcement comes on the heels of claims by former Air Force pilot Jacob Barber, who asserts he was part of a clandestine team tasked with retrieving crashed alien technology. Barber describes the object as a massive egg-like craft, unlike any known human-made aircraft. The Pentagon statement confirms the existence of an active inquiry into this case, marking a significant shift in transparency regarding unidentified aerial phenomenon. The development has ignited widespread speculation and interest as the government digs deeper into the mysteries surrounding these enigmas. So what do you think about that? The government's not getting involved.
Well, they're at least admitting that they're looking into it. I mean, it goes back when... even when they had UFO reports before, maybe at times I swear they would say, well, we're looking into it or whatever. Maybe they would try to not say something. I think this one made such a big splash. And especially recently, I felt like it took a lot of legs. All they're saying is like, okay, yeah, we're looking into it is what that boils down to it. We're not getting any real details of, we think that egg looked like, the video leaves a lot of questions or whatever. But I mean, I guess I'm glad that they're actually taking it, I guess, serious.
You assume, yeah. I mean, like,
you assume, but what does that mean? Is this what was her name? Ruby
Luna, you mean?
Yeah, Luna. I mean, is this just matter? Luna's like, yeah. I'm looking into that one. I'm looking into it. Fuck, get out of here.
Right.
I mean, it'll be interesting. But I mean, I'm glad that they're at least willing to talk about it instead of just blow it off and say, we don't deal with this silly stuff or whatever. So if that's a step forward that they are admitting that they're looking into it. But when I first saw it, I thought we were going to get like a legit update. And the update was, we're looking into it. And I'm like, okay.
I mean, you got to get what you get. I mean, it's been 4 weeks and, now we're moving along with, we're looking into it, Yes, it's kind of a pat, not a super exciting answer, but compare this to any time in the past when it's like, absolutely not. Go somewhere else. We're not doing that.
Well, I mean, what's interesting, this is a very recent sort of thing, and then it's coming up and they're getting that we're looking into. What about all these other reports that they're still saying that they're going to release? Like, what are they waiting for?
I mean, Arrow has released tons of stuff. I mean, it's usually there's nothing out there. That's what their releases. But they're considering the fact that it's been how many years since Project Blue Book? I was going
to say that was the one I was thinking about earlier, where it's just like it felt like they're like, we're looking into it, and then it's done, and then like, is it?
I would say that one was much more. Hynek was out there, on the ground, like investigating stuff. To your point, like, are they actually like? Is there a team out there going to Jake Barber, interviewing him, going to the scene, and again? If what he says is true, it's the government doing this anyway. So like, what then do you not know? Like, can you not call up a general? Is that maybe that's part of it? Maybe it's like, hey, general, or do we have crash focus? I don't know. I mean,
those generals have been sacked.
Good point. Good point. They're gone now.
And the current ones are doing nothing except for following Trump around and figuring out how to take over the country.
Right. They're like, sorry, we don't have time to investigate UFOs. We're working on a dictatorship over here. Come on,
Yes.
come on, get with it. Otherwise, you're going to the gulags. Maybe that's how we stay out. Is that we just keep talking UFOs because Republicans like UFOs. So just stick with the UFO talk. None of this other stock dictatorship. What? I don't know what you're talking about. Hail Putin. Hail Trump.
Hey, did you get your Starlink implant already?
I have a schedule for it already. We have a story coming up just about that, or something to do with that as well. But yeah, either way, Doom is on its way, and that corresponds perfectly with, or segues perfectly with our next story, because I have some end of days news for you. As you may have seen, Pope Francis, the 88-year-old current pontiff, has recently faced significant health challenges, including double pneumonia and early-stage kidney insufficiency. At one point, his condition was reported as critical. Despite these issues, reports indicate that his condition is improving slightly, though he remains under close medical supervision. This brings to mind the prophecy of the popes.
Prophecy of the Pope.
Thank you. That's it. That's the way it should be. Attributed to Saint Malachi. It's a series of 112 cryptic Latin phrases purportedly predicting the succession of Catholic popes, concluding with a pope referred to as Peter the Roman, whose reign would precede the destruction of Rome and the end of the world. It should be noted that scholars widely regard this prophecy as a 16th century forgery, noting its accurate descriptions of popes up to 5090 and vaguer correlations thereafter. The prophecy's final entry describes Peter the Roman as the last pope, leading some to speculate about its relevance to Pope Francis's health. However, Pope Francis does not bear the name Peter.
Nope.
Nor is he from Rome. He was born Jorge Mario Bergoglio.
Sounds very, very much like Peter. I'm just saying.
In Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Very similar to Rome as well.
They're very similar to Rome. This discrepancy has led many to question the prophecy's applicability to the current situation.
Prophecy of the Pope!
But here's the eerie part. According to this prophecy, Pope Francis would be the final pontiff, fulfilling the 112th prediction. So, of course, it can't be overlooked. The end is nigh. I mean, wars, rumors of wars, the last pope. I mean, it dovetails together perfectly.
Well, when you put it in current context outside of the whole Pope thing, that does sort of add a much more unique twist to the fact that the end times could be here.
There's an asteroid that has a 0.001 chance of hitting the Earth now. I bet if the Pope dies, it's gonna become 100%. That's the way astronomy works.
And since Elon's not looking at the stars, he's currently looking in all of our personal records. He's not going to help notice it and find a defense for it. No,
he's probably going to start the number of the beast. Elon Musk is going to be XXX is the number of the beast.
It might be his mothership coming back to pick him up or something.
They rejected him. The reason why he's not in the alien communities because they knew he was a piece of shit, and they're like, "Get the fuck out of here, you piece of shit!" And he's space garbage, is what he is. He's space garbage that landed here and grew into this caricature of a human being.
That certainly fits. I mean, this one. I mean, it definitely seems a little bit like the whole Nostradamus things, where some things seem current, some things seems whatever. They certainly seem to take a stab. But the fact that you got people back in the 16th century, like, okay, this is stupid, like, and here.
Well, no, it was modern scholars are the ones that said it was stupid. The ones who fear the end. In the 16th century, they knew they could see the future, and it should also be pointed out that Pope Benedict was named was Pope 1111, 111, I guess, and he was on the list. And then maybe the thing is the last pope, even though he's Francis, the code name for the popes, they have code names like Muad'Dib. Was like Usul, it was his secret name.
All right, I got a twist for you.
Yeah.
Even outside of the whole fact that the World War III and the world could be ending, maybe once the aliens land right around the time that the asteroid's going to come by, people realize that faith is just one big giant smoke and mirrors, and they're like, we don't need a pope because this is all BS. And
So it's
maybe
kind of
that's why it ends.
A great awakening,
awakening,
an enlightenment away from
Yes.
superstition.
Yes, maybe it's not all doom and gloom. Maybe it's the doom is for the people that have been keeping people shackled.
No,
with this.
absolutely not. It's the end of the world. So,
all right, end of the world. Fine, let's die.
If you want to know, say the actual passage for Peter the Roman is Peter the Roman, who will pasture his sheep in many tribulations, and when his
nobody even has sheep anymore.
Yeah.
Are the people that are his flock the sheep?
I would assume so. It's kind of standard biblical imagery, but either way. And when these things are finished, the city of 7 hills, i.e. Rome, will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people. The end.
Oh, so it's just the end of Rome. That's cool. I mean, I do like Italy, but I mean, that would suck if Rome's gone. But the rest of the place will be fine, right? It's just Rome, right?
No. Why are you ruining this for me? It's the end of the world.
I'm just a beacon of positivity. I'm just here to just remind you of the light. That it's not so dark, man. It's light in the world.
Let's see if you keep your positivity with this next story. Meta.
Oh no, it's going out the window in this one.
Meta, also known as the Facebook company, has made significant strides in brain-computer interface (BCI) technology. Researchers have successfully trained an AI model to decode brainwaves, achieving up to 80% accuracy in laboratory settings. This advancement allows for the translation of neural signals into text, enabling users to type, quote unquote, using their thoughts. However, actually, the practical application of this technology faces considerable challenges. For one, the current system relies on a magnetoencephalography.
Magnetoencephalography.
There we go. Magnetoencephalography. I can't still say it. It's a big ass machine, which is approximately half
size of a room or something.
Yeah, it weighs half a ton in weight and costs around $2 million. Additionally, the device requires a shielded room to operate effectively and demands that the user remain completely still, as any movement could disrupt the signal detection. Beyond these technical hurdles, there are significant ethical and privacy concerns. As we all probably know at this point, Meta's history with data privacy has been contentious, to say the least.
It ain't just Meta nowadays. Everybody's privacy is gone.
Right. Well, and none of these guys are right. So raising questions about the implications of a corporation having access to an individual's neural data, the potential for misuse or unauthorized collection and sharing of such intimate information can only be assumed given how badly these tech companies have handled our data so far. But of course, being a pessimist, how much do you think someone would pay to have their brain map taken by Meta? What's the exchange rate? So how lifelike does the VR headset have to be for them to say, oh yeah, sure, you can like have all my brain for, I'll pay you $700 just so I can have like lifelike porn on my head. I got you thinking. You're like, that sounds like a steal.
But no, I mean, like, the technology to scan brains and all that stuff, like the med beds are already starting to make their way into real existence, like where they're actually scanning the bodies and using the AI to really map out brains, the body, and all that stuff already starting to happen. When they talk about this room, literally all I could think about, are you an X-Men? Did you watch the X-Men?
Yeah.
You remember the movie Cerebro? The room that Charles Xavier would go in, put this helmet on, and when they say you can't move, I'm like, well, the dude's stationary. He's in a wheelchair. He can't move. But he's literally connecting. In the movie, was only connecting to other mutants.
Right.
But literally, it was times where it would weed out, and I swear it was connecting to all humans, because at some point, I think somebody was using it for evil in one of the movies, it was connecting everyone. But that's what it sounds like, is this like room where they're able to connect to everybody. But if they're just trying to scan everybody's images, you know, it doesn't sound as good as when they turn it on the outside of the room and scan the whole world and then everybody's brain.
Well, if everyone's attached, I mean, like that's the thing. Like,
but we're all attached in the network of life. We're all just energy floating around, as we'll talk about later on with the pyramids, man. That's just like the energy that's just flowing through the earth. It's all the waves are out there, man. It's
I mean,
just like,
yes, there's that. But in this case, I feel like they're actually going to create a device that you put on your head that, who knows? I mean, like, I guess I don't have the sci-fi brain enough to figure out like how.
Even then, you think about it. So they'll see neurons, they'll see energy, they'll see electricity happening. But then to try to do it, it's almost like you have to stimulate it in a certain way. And then they'll have to record those things and say, okay, this must clearly be a reaction to this. So therefore, I can think this is what's causing that reaction. So if we want to elicit that sort of reaction, we can maybe then reverse engineer it. So say if you're watching, like you said, watching porn or whatever, and you get this certain reaction, you're like, okay, I see how his brain works. So if I therefore make that same voltage go through the same areas, will this create the same sort of essential feel in this person? I don't know if it will create the same image, because I think image outside of even the brain, maybe there's some other element, the soul, if you will, that helps create what we see and think, you know. It'd be interesting to see if it could actually be used to sort of reverse that thought going back in by how you interpret the whatever. But I imagine
So you
them
think like
sitting there.
a therapy type thing? Like, let's say if you had like intrusive thoughts, it could like cancel out. It could
cancel out or something.
Read access to your brain.
Because even if you have a scan of the brain, what does that even mean? Just the scan of how the energy goes through, and you just have a diagram of the brain? Or
well, no, I think in my head, the way if I was evil Zuckerberg, you create a gaming machine, right? And then you start, because you don't. Every brain's kind of different how it's like mapped. There are like there's areas that they know are responsible for this and that, but the actual like. You have to kind of plot around. Have you ever seen like a brain surgery video? Yeah, they make these kind of like they'll tell you to like say the alphabet, and then they'll kind of probe your brain, and then they'll touch a spot, and then they know generally where to look, but they'll probe the spot where they're like, okay, this is like the speech or memory or whatever, and you'll be like A B C, and they'll okay, all right, put an A there because that's like this is, and then that's how they map it. So imagine. You would initially you'd basically feed people games, and what those would do is they'd say, okay, bounce this ball with your brain, make this word, float this, and they'd have you do tasks, right? Which is essentially mapping because it's looking at your head, and it's like, okay, all right, now we know who it is, and now that we know kind of how the whole map's working, we can then just kind of give them free access. Go free range. Go find what you really like. And then once it has a strong map, it can then that's the actual core data of like how does this person run? And then it can maybe, like you said, have read write access. That's the scary part. Read write access. You know, I don't trust the Zuck. I think that if you give him too much power, he's proven he will abuse it. And I mean, there's nothing we can do to stop him. You know, I will say the one thing that could stop him are his bad choices, because it feels like he is constantly he wants to be that guy that invents the thing. I mean, he had Facebook, and that was for a while. That was the thing, but he knows he can't just live in there because people are eventually it's boomer garbage now, you know? So he needs to get that next thing. Now he has those glasses that look fucking ridiculous, those thick AR glasses. I do think AR is the next way to go, but his products look like garbage, like absolute. And then I think Google came out with theirs, and they look nice and thin rimmed. They look like, you know, I mean, wow, they still kind of look odd, but it's way better than whatever the hell Meta's working on. And then the whole fact he was chasing the metaverse. He thought the metaverse was going to be, and you only have to spend a few seconds like figuring out what it was. This crypto adjacent BS scam tool, and like, no, don't follow that, Zuck, don't do that. But he's like, no, this is gonna be the next fucking thing. I'm gonna name my company after it. No, don't do it. He did it because he wants to be that guy. And now, of course, he's thinking, well, now we'll get this thing on the brains. We'll brain map people, and then I don't know, that'll be the thing, and we'll control them, and it'll be like Videodrome or something.
I mean, they're trying to scan people's brains because they want to transfer it to an AI form and be able to, make it into machine language, so then that the AI can then understand it.
I mean, they obviously would be used to train AI. It's all data. They want to make these, especially if you're looking at these, monstrosities, these robots that Elon's making. I mean, his robots are never going to get off the fucking assembly floor. It's going to be these Boston Dynamics things that are out there like killing people, and probably gonna, they're gonna have compassion. Like, I'm sorry that I had to kill you, but I have to stab you, make sure you're fucking dead because those are my orders. But they'll make them better robots. You're right, because eventually they'll have that. That, I don't know, the je ne sais quoi of being, and then eventually will be replaced and housed inside them. Who knows?
Then it's like Blade Runner, where you can't tell the difference, where they actually look and bleed and think and have brains that look just like humans, but they're not.
And that will only then will we really appreciate why we have to give them limited lifespans.
Just like the movie.
Exactly. Everyone's like, oh, it's so sad that these poor replicants have to die, and now they should just let them live. No, you can't let them live, because if you let them live, they're going to
overlords.
Exactly. They have to have limit. They can only live for 10 years. How long did a replicant live? 10 years? I don't know. Either way,
something along those lines.
It should be shorter. Replicants are danger. People don't fall for those fake messiahs, the AI gods. Don't do it. And with that, California has plans to take Bigfoot for themselves. We'll tell you all about the state's evil scheme for the mystical cryptid in our Off-Normal segment at the end of the show. But first, many people believe that pyramids are mystical engines of power, and many more think those people are lunatics. But in a new twist, scientists may have confirmed the pyramid power folks are actually right after all. We'll tell you all about it after the break.
As we all know, loneliness can be torture. Even though that sounds good, because it's torture, it's not. It's unproductive and pathetic. Meanwhile, Pandemonium is filled to capacity with legions of pain-thirsty fiends who lie dormant without any souls to flay, crush, or boil. Why not remedy both issues? Cast out your loneliness under the commanding whip of a grateful tormentor. History calls them demons, but I call them Beelzebuddies. And now, I want to share their unique fiendship with you! Fun little friends like Durgelmer the Murder Churl! Durgelmer is a beautiful example of his species. Murder churls enjoy plunging their lifelike appendages into everyone they love and hate. They don't discriminate, which makes them perfect little friends for cutters or other flagellants. Just remember to replenish your fluids after every encounter. But maybe you're more of a big dog type. If so, you'll just fall in love with the mighty Slore! Birthed in the tumult of the Third Reconciliation by the last of the McKittrick supplicants, the mighty Slore is fond of fires, setting them, breathing them, and so on. Give it a home and let its fires banish the darkness of loneliness once and for all. But be warned, it must be fed a special diet of shoos and zoos every 24 hours. Or you guessed it, fires! Too much fire, you say? Well, then mayhaps you'd prefer the tickly prickle of the thigh chortle, Saint Castabil. Once a powerful Chaldean necromancer, Castabil has had a hard time finding his special niche here in Pandemonium. By giving this little ragamuffin a home, you'll be offering him a chance to find out who he is, what he likes, and how to rekindle his passion for imprisoning spirits of the living into his bestial homunculi. Fun! And I won't ruin the surprise as to what a thigh chortle is. You probably wouldn't believe me if I told you anyway. Every order comes with an adoption registry card, detailed history of your special little miscreants, a pre-desecrated idol of your chosen dark emissary cast right here in one of the many fiery furnaces of hell, as well as a handwritten votive for conjuring your special spirit of fiendship. So be rid of the torments of loneliness by welcoming in your own very special tormentor. Order now!
BL's buddies are invisible and may not manifest any reasonable displays that would indicate they actually exist. Once conjured, they may not be able to be unsummoned. Fiendship should not be mistaken for friendship. Beelzebuddies may not like you. Beelzebuddies may turn on you or dismiss you, leaving you alone once again. Beelzebuddies may eat your pets. Beelzebuddies should not be used as a replacement for human companionship. BL Industries takes no responsibility for the actions or lack thereof of Beelzebuddies.
Pyramid power might be having a comeback moment. In the 1970s and 1980s, a fascination with pyramid power swept through popular culture, suggesting that the pyramidal structures could harness mysterious energies with various beneficial effects. Proponents claimed that the pyramids could preserve food, sharpen razor blades, enhance health, and even boost sexual vitality. This movement was specifically influenced by authors like Patrick Flanagan, whose 1973 book Pyramid Power: The Millennium Science delved into these assertions. Similarly, Max Toth and Greg Nielsen's 1974 publication Pyramid Power explored experiments indicating that seeds stored in pyramid replicas germinated more rapidly and grew taller. The allure of pyramid power extended beyond literature. For instance, the Alan Parsons Project's 1978 album Pyramid featured lyrics and cover art inspired by Flanagan's work. Despite the enthusiasm, scientific investigations during that period failed to substantiate these claims, leading to a decline in the movement's popularity by the late 1980s. Decades later, the intersection of pyramidal structures and energy phenomenon resurfaced in the scientific community. A theoretical study conducted by researchers from ITMO University in Russia and Laserzentrum Hanover in Germany investigated the electromagnetic properties of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Their research revealed that under specific resonance conditions, the pyramid can concentrate electromagnetic energy in its internal chambers and beneath its base. By applying methods of theoretical physics, the team demonstrated that the pyramid could focus electromagnetic waves, particularly in the radio frequency range. These findings, derived from numerical modeling and analytical techniques, suggest that the pyramid structure allows for the concentration of electromagnetic energy in designated areas. While the ancient Egyptians were unlikely aware of these specific properties, understanding how the pyramid interacts with the electromagnetic waves could form the design of nanoparticles for applications in sensors and efficient solar cells. It's important to note that these studies are theoretical and based on simulations. No practical energy harnessing applications have been demonstrated in the Great Pyramid. You were earlier naysaying about this. What's your problem with pyramid power now that it's been proven to be correct?
Well, in demonstrations and applications, but not in the real thing, in numbers and whatever they're saying. Well, no, I was just saying,
climate change was just figured out with numbers and models. Just
the fact that they, I think people have always speculated that maybe that the pyramids were either built along like energy lines or
ley lines. They're called ley lines.
Yeah, like within. So could be some of these actions that are being happening with the electromagnetic waves and stuff already be happening because it's what's happening in the earth that's just filtering up through these spaces. Maybe it's the magic of the triangle, the shape of the triangle that
polyhedron.
That's what I said, a triangle. That does all these things. Whether that was what they were actually thinking, I think that's just a matter of them putting current day thinking and trying to use it on whatever. I don't think that's what the Egyptians were doing. If anything else, I think it probably was more like they could tell that there was some sort of energy or some sort of wave coming from the earth, and they're like, this is special, and maybe that's the gateway to the next life or whatever. And that's why they built on these things. But as for something in the future where they're like, it could possibly do stuff with electromagnetic energy. And they're like, what's that good for? And the Pharaoh's like, I don't know if that means anything. I mean, I don't know. It's a lot of smart people trying to find ways to apply things on it. Do I think that's what their intention was when they were building it? No.
You are just a total joy kill this episode. Just hates pyramid power. Hates.
I don't hate pyramid. I believe that there could be something to the fact that they are on like energy, focuses of energy points in the earth. But as for are they a power generator themselves? I don't think they are generating the power. I think it's just their location.
It's kind of like a marker. You're saying like it's basically just a giant marker saying like this is boom,
like if the pyramid
power.
wasn't there, people would find something about that spot because it's where it's at, probably in the earth. I don't know if it was just the pyramid itself.
That reminds me of
spot.
Yeah, Neil Gaiman in American Gods. I don't know if it's his original idea or whatever, but so the first time I saw it, where he's like, people have been gravitating to these points of spiritual energy for years, and we build churches there. We don't know why. They're just like we gravitate to them, and there could be something about that.
Like
spot.
Stonehenge. Yeah. Like do we think like people are like, why is Stonehenge built? For some reason people were drawn to that spot, whether it was the energy, whether it was the whatever. I think the pyramids was just another one of those things that there is some sort of phenomenon, some other reason. But do I think that they built there because they realized that they could generate a power source or whatever? No, I think it's just,
or maybe they felt the power. Maybe they could feel it.
They just felt something that I do believe that part. I believe they felt something that drew them there, and but if that's what shaped them, and they said the best way to harness this is to build this pyramid shape.
I feel like you're doing the opposite of what the ancient aliens people say would do, where they're like they don't appreciate the ingeniousness of ancient peoples. In the sense that they had to have aliens come down to do it, and you're doing it kind of a different way, saying they're too stupid to appreciate these electrical phenomenon and how to harness them, because they really were like the Atlanteans, an advanced culture that was then laid low by their own corruption, a Donald Trump type figure who got in and destroyed their pristine civilization. Wow. That's what happened. Wow,
that's what. I was like, where'd that come from? I'm the naysayer.
I'm just calling in balls and strikes here, people. This is the way it really is. The pyramids were a sign of a high culture. Finally, like they had surmounted a great point, and they knew what to do with it. And then probably Tutankhamun, I'm going to say, was Donald Trump of the Egyptians. He came in and said, "No, sun worship, bro, sun worship, and I'm the sun." And they're like, gosh.
I mean, I do agree with the point. I mean, well, I think anything with the radio frequencies and stuff like that stuff has always existed, because especially when radio waves and stuff coming from outer space and then working with whatever gravitational forces may be on the earth, maybe it presented phenomena and they were like, we have to build something. But to think that this was created to actually concentrate and focus the energy for something, if so, like what? Did every once in a while do they shoot out a signal to the space and say, hey, space lords, come down and say hey again, we saw in The Fifth Element or something,
right.
Which, by the way, I saw a clip for that the other day, and I totally made me want to watch that movie again. I loved The Fifth Element. I thought that was just like pure fun.
This is why we're very different people.
Did you hate The Fifth Element?
I despise The Fifth
Element.
Now there
can you possibly despise
it's just
it?
Terrible. Luc Besson, I don't know if he has made a good movie since The Professional.
That was an incredible movie.
Yeah. Last point on this, and we can get on with it. But it is kind of interesting, an interesting little coincidence, if you will, that they may, if their numbers and simulations hold up, that pyramid structure could actually have a way of helping with what were they saying? Applications,
sexual vitality, enhancing health, sharpening razor blades,
design of nanoparticles or applications and sensors and efficient solar cells. It would be interesting if there actually is a practical, like energy efficient use for the pyramid, which then I think if you were looking backwards, you could say, well, because they did know. They knew that these things, but I'll just leave it at that. We disagree.
Yeah. If they knew how to do nanoparticles and things of that sort, you don't think they would have made the pharaoh like invincible?
They tried to, but then it was, again, like I said, it was Tutankhamun, the Donald Trump of Egypt, and he effed it up. He effed it up, and that's why they now got buried in the sand, because he probably did something bad. We don't know. We'll never know, because the nanoparticles ate it all.
That's another, which goes to another great movie, The Mummy. Have you ever watched The Mummy and all those sci-fi movies?
You just love terrible movies. You just crave terrible movies.
I love all bad sci-fi and like fantasy shit. I love it. I eat it up.
All right. Well, geez. I'll know if you invite me to a movie to avoid it. This is all I'm gathering from this. If Cole Coffey's like, hey man, you want to go see this movie? I hear it's really great.
It's like, my favorite movie. I hear it's got great reviews.
Yeah. That's the hard pass.
I find those ones. It's like it got one tomato. Rotten Tomato it's better if it has more tomatoes, right?
Yeah,
the less tomatoes, it sucks. So I'm like, yeah, dude, it's straight one tomato. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been forewarned. Thank you. These like little confessions. Now I know. But this does kind of. You've gotten me into the right mood though for this next story too.
There you go.
I feel like I'm having to cope. If you want to believe, it probably means you just can't cope. According to science, recent research conducted by psychologists from Liverpool John Moores University and Manchester Metropolitan University has uncovered a link between traditional paranormal beliefs and increased stress levels. The study, titled Re-Evaluation of the Relationship Between Paranormal Belief and Perceived Stress Using Statistical Modeling, just rolls off the tongue.
Totally.
Sought to explain how difficult types of paranormal beliefs relate to perceived stress and coping mechanisms. Researchers utilized a refined version of the revised paranormal belief scale, a thing that I did not know existed until today, which categorizes beliefs into two primary dimensions. I call them categories, but they call them dimensions.
I mean, they're scientists.
Yeah, exactly. They got to make things difficult. So traditional paranormal beliefs are in what they call or encompass beliefs in phenomena such as witchcraft, superstitions, and traditional religious concepts. These beliefs often involve external forces influencing one's life, suggesting a perception of reduced personal control over events. And the other dimension is New Age philosophy. This dimension includes beliefs related to spiritualism, psi or psychic phenomenon, and precognition. These beliefs emphasize individual spiritual experiences and personal growth, indicating a perception of internal control over one's life. So, the study findings reveal that individuals with strong adherence to traditional traditional paranormal
belief
experienced higher levels of distress and demonstrated less effective coping strategies. In contrast, those aligned with New Age philosophy did not exhibit significant associations with distress and coping difficulties. These results suggest that beliefs involving external control may contribute to increased stress, whereas beliefs centered on external control do not have the same impact on well-being. Which I think you could kind of say that kind of makes a little sense, put that way, that if you're constantly conditioning yourself that you are in control, then when you're
as opposed to some mystical being up in the sky,
right, and you're waiting for either
putting
permission
you through challenges.
Yeah. I would also, because I try to look deeper, because it's very broad, because it also assumes that you could be practicing witch.
Both. And you could, that's it. I was going to say they could have a crossover, and these two things here doesn't leave room. It's either you're A or B, and I think most people are a bit of A and B.
Yeah, because New Age gurus, oftentimes, these New Age cults will essentially give their control over themselves to a guru, and it's all the same kind of New Agey type stuff, but they're just been weaponized. Again, it feels like, what specifically do you believe, and where do you put the power? I guess, do you put the power out here or put it in here? And that's the difference.
And you've talked before, even when we were talking about the psyops and some of the other stuff the other day, when people are having this like psychic phenomena, a lot of people were still attributing that to what they perceived as angels and these other beings, you know? So it's like there's lots of bleed over depending on who the person is, you know, because a lot of them maybe came up with a traditional background in the traditional paranormal belief area. Then as they grew older and maybe became influenced by other systems that, you know, they encountered, then they believed in a little bit of the two of them. But I don't think there's anybody that's probably purely maybe one or the other, unless they're so purely religious that they're like, it's either this, that, there is no other, whatever. That's all. It's
almost like caricatures that literally, you know, I mean, and you know, unfortunately, those people do exist. I mean, unfortunately for them, that it is really like, you know, Jesus hold the wheel like all the time. Yeah. And yeah, you kind of like, no, man, like you gotta do this part on yourself, or it's really don't wait for that. And I feel like even if you talk to like a lot of theologians, they'll tell you like, it's not supposed to work that way ever. Like there's that parable about the swimmer who was like waiting for God to save him. And then, you know, several people come in like, hey man, I have a lifeboat. No, I'm waiting for God. And then the Coast Guard comes out. Come on, man. Like, no, I'm waiting for God. And then eventually he drowns and he goes to heaven. He's like, what's up, dude? I was waiting for you. He's like, I sent you like a guy with a boat. And then the Coast Guard came out. That was me. He's like, oh, sucks. I mean, it's a terrible way to learn a lesson, but still. But yeah, it's kind of one of those things of like, yeah, where do you put that agency? But again, I think theologians were always saying, they're like, no, it doesn't work that way. There has to be some internal agency that there is a certain amount of surrendering to faith, but in a lot of ways, that's the cope, is that you are not supposed to, you're supposed to essentially surrender to the things that are out of your control and move on with your life, and don't worry and don't stress about things that aren't in your control. You know, have faith in God, have faith in whatever, you know, Theranos or whatever.
Yeah, it's definitely a mix of both. Because when I think of like internal versus the external, I see like the internal being like, you know, because even how you were sort of describing like there, you know, if you sound like, you know, I'm not going to sweat the other things, I'm just going to focus what's on me and what I can handle. To me, that's a very internal sounding approach, where it's like, if I need the external sort of thing to help fix things, you know, if I'm expecting some outside sources, I'm like, when I said, I can see why they say the traditional has more stress, because if they feel like there's these forces outside of me that are either controlling my destiny or bringing these things on, these hardships that I got to work through, that's coming from whatever, you know, and without something else, you know, somebody's help, without God's help, I'm not going to be able to make it through here. Whereas I can see the internal person, it's more of, okay, here's me handling these things. And if this is something I can't sweat, I'm just going to push it off. I'm going to make the decision that I'm not going to let this outside force affect my mood. It's not going to affect my whatever. I'm going to move on beyond it. So which vibes like me, like so hardcore, because I think that's most what would be rational people, that at the end of the day, it's you handling your business and making sure that you move forward. As good as it makes people feel, I don't want to make sound all anti-preacher. As good as it sounds for people to need somebody else's or the belief in something else to kind of move through, I think most sane people would find that decision like, why stay stressed out waiting for some external, you know, answer to make you feel better when you could just come up with it yourself internally and just like move on. I'm much more on the team Napsters, the team New Age philosophy. I just call it the team Napsters, as opposed to the traditional believers, I suppose. But I don't know. But it's interesting because, you know, there's definitely things that when I was initially reading the story, there are definitely things, you know, because I was trying to think, all the times we've talked about some of these shows, I was trying to figure out, has there ever been anything that's affected me, or like I have some sort of story? Not that this is going to get into like ghost story, but when I was reading about witchcraft and superstitious and other things, it started making me thinking about, ghosts and other external things that might be around us, where I can see if somebody was like, if you want to believe in that, you kind of have to side a little bit with the traditional paranormal, because that kind of where a lot of that stuff lives. And I will tell you this story. I don't know if I ever told you the story. This is back when when I lived in Gehenna, a little suburb of Columbus.
You mean Helltown? Gehenna?
Helltown, yeah, where I got in all kinds of trouble. There was one night, I remember I was sleeping, and for some reason, I remember as I started, something was rousing me to wake up. I remember something was like, gave me this just sort of like doomy, sort of like feeling like you need to wake up. And I remember before I opened up my eyes, though, I had this overall feeling. Like, wow, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, because I remember so clearly the feeling, somebody's hovering over you, looking at you. Somebody is above you right now. And I remember I was like, all right, steel yourself. Something's going to be right there. I was thinking like, you know, because back to who didn't love like the Ghostbusters and all those other movies? But I literally was, but I was readying myself. When you open up your eyes, something's going to be there. Do not fucking like lose your shit, but just be ready for it. And because it was enough that it woke me up, but I was before open. And then I was like, okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Open up my eyes. Nothing there. But I looked next to me and my dog was there staring straight up at the ceiling where this thing would have been. And I was like, shut the fuck up. No way. And it freaked me the fuck out. And I was like, something was there. I was like, why else would the dog be literally looking up? I don't even know if he was slept on the bed and maybe he came to the bed because something was happening or whatever.
Was he on the bed or like next to
He was
bed?
on my bed next to me, laying next to my legs, looking up above me, like where whatever would have been. I don't remember him going to bed with me, but he was in the bed when I woke up. And as I thought about this more as time has passed, I was like, was he in the bed sleeping and he was just happened to be looking, or did he come into the bed thinking he needed to like be there next to me, protect me or whatever, as I've thought about things over the years or whatever. But I cannot explain it. Like, what camp would this be in? You know, so I definitely believe that there's elements that have happened in my life that point me to that these things could exist and things happen. But, you know, where does this fit in with, like, you know? Right.
I mean, that's a weird thing, because that would probably, who knows, with that the ghosts would feel like it'd fall into that, or spirit. I don't know, it's a presence. Because that, I mean, really, it would have to be like if there's any like kind of a belief statement with it. And since
if I believe they were trying to harm me, or if I believe that they were watching over me, or
stuff like that, yeah. And that, but also like, where did you put? Like, do you have the ability to defend yourself? Is it or do you need a holy guardian angel to protect you? It's stuff like that. And I guess because that would be like, it would be an event, right? That provokes stress, and how do you cope with that stress?
Yeah,
would be the question of like, where is it faith? Do you then pray to God and then hope that God intervenes? Because then you're taking the agency away from you. You're saying God intervene, or do you start researching how to exorcise ghosts from your house? And
I was probably more in that one. Yeah. But even then, I don't think because I remember I was like, I didn't feel like I was scared for like a second, but then I was like, there's nothing to be afraid of. And I was like, that was crazy, like strange and weird. But I was like, was it a warning? Was it whatever? And then you just start to wonder. I think anything that breaks you from sleep shocks your system, because nobody just in the middle of the night is like, I feel like waking up and I feel like there's a happy being floating above me or whatever. Yeah. But I definitely certainly
peacefully watching.
Yeah, just peacefully watching. I certainly didn't go the route of thinking, I need to get off to the bed and start praying and like have somebody protect me or whatever. But it's still, I don't know. Yeah. But that story popped in my head when I was reading about this earlier today, and I was just like, I should share this story, because I don't think I've ever told you that story. I've only told a handful of people probably that story.
Now you've told the whole world. The whole world this is a show.
Yes, the one time, because I think it's one of those things where, when we had talked about things you remember or don't remember as a kid, like when we were talking about the schooling that the school of the gifted or whatever that the kids had to go through, but nobody remembered until they hear certain things.
Oh, right.
It's hard to remember the gate program. It's hard to remember when you have like these things happen unless it's so involved that your brain just like, you cannot forget this. But like this was, I remember at the time it happened, was very big, but it's one of the things you just you forget about it. And then every once in a while it pops up. But it literally, when I was reading this, it literally made me think of it. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that story. I was like, I should tell them that story. I was like, I don't think I've ever really told many people about it because it was so weird.
That is spooky.
Dude.
And kind of getting back to where people put their agency, you just basically have to say any belief that's basically intercessionary and you pray to a god and wait for it, or you're just basically waiting, versus like I guess like I'm quibbling over like the designation of new age versus and maybe that's what their point is that they're just saying like, no, traditionally these religion, like organized religion, witchcraft, I don't even know enough about witchcraft. I know they have the goddess or Hecate and stuff like that they pray to, but again, it's all about like who do you put that agency to? So I guess it sort of makes sense. And
so what you're saying is get rid of religion and you'll be less stressed.
But what? Keep the gurus? keep the keep the phone psychics.
Weird.
That's all right. That's Cold Coffee's world right there. We got more Miss Cleo, less
Miss Cleo,
Pope,
and then we'll go watch a good movie together afterwards.
And then we'll go watch some fantastic AAA movies.
Everybody would be much less stressed.
Or just they'll have peak stress and they're like, why did I do this to myself? Why did I do this to myself?
I'll never get those 2 hours back.
Right. My life is ruined. I've allowed Cold Coffee to drive and he's driven us straight into a goddamn ditch. Yes. All right. Well, California is considering designating Bigfoot as its official state cryptid through Assembly Bill 666. And actually, it's not a joke. Introduced by Assembly member Chris Rogers on January 14th, 2025, this legislation aims to recognize the cultural significance of Bigfoot, especially in Northern California regions like Willow Creek, Humboldt County, known as the Bigfoot capital of the world. The term Bigfoot originated in 1958 when large footprints were discovered in Humboldt County, sparking widespread interest. The iconic 1967 Patterson-Gimlin film purportedly capturing Bigfoot was also filmed near Willow Creek. Proponents believe that officially recognizing Bigfoot could boost tourism and honor its place in local folklore. The bill is currently in the early stages of the legislative process. I believe what this actually is paranormal imperialism. This bill is attempting to claim Bigfoot for California, and they're preventing the rest of us from having it.
Yes.
Seeing that you have a day of bad takes, you probably support this bill of them keeping Bigfoot all for themselves.
Well, I mean, especially if it's actually Bill 666. I mean, like
it literally is. I looked at it; it's right there.
Do it. No, it's ridiculous. Screw you, California. You can't have them.
No, you can't.
No, I don't like it.
You gotta share it. Now, I will say, do I appreciate the effort? Absolutely. I appreciate you having an actual bill 666 and using that opportunity to do something fun with it. More people. It
does seem like a joke, right? Like right. You sure this wasn't slated to come out April 1st or something?
Right. If my internet would work, I could probably read the bill. I actually have it's supposed to be up on a tab, but it's dead and it's just gray. So I would otherwise I would read it, and it was like a short. It's like we hereby designate.
Would you like me to read it for you?
If you could, yeah.
Let me make sure I got it all here. Assembly Bill 666, as introduced, Rogers, state cryptid. Existing law establishes the state flag and the state emblems, including, among other things, the golden poppy as the official state flower and the California redwood as the official state tree. This bill would state the intent of the legislature to enact legislation that would designate Bigfoot as the official state cryptid. Vote, majority, appropriation, no. Fiscal committee, no. Local program, no. The people of the state of California do enact as follows. Section 1, it is the intent of the legislature to enact legislation that would designate Bigfoot as the official state cryptid. Assembly Bill number 666. That's just ridiculous. And then it just happened. Was he waiting to put it out? Like he's like, one more, then I'm putting it in. One more. Or
Well, I have to
can
imagine.
he just pick a bill number? Can he just pick a bill number?
Yeah, they have to be far beyond 666
I would think, right?
bills. That they definitely avoided it. And he's like, well, if they're gonna avoid it, I'll do something fun with it.
He's like, yeah, you got to think people probably avoided it. You know?
Yeah. There's no way California only has 665 fucking laws, written up.
Yeah, there's not much to it. If this is all it takes,
I know. That took him like all of 10 minutes to write up.
Like if that, if that. I mean, like half of it was already the existing stuff that's already going on. Like it was like a reminder. Oh yeah, by the way, did you know that the golden poppy was our state flower?
Right, just filling it up.
And then one line. And oh, by the way, we're gonna make Bigfoot the cryptid.
Yeah. I believe another town in that area actually even passed a law saying it was illegal to kill Bigfoot. If you have working internet, you could probably cross-reference that. But I do remember hearing that, and it actually, there was some comment on it, I believe, at the time, and people were like, "Why are you wasting government time with this BS?"
Yeah.
And the guy actually defended it, saying like, who knows? We don't, if you do come across it, I want to make sure that no one's allowed to kill it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah, I can see where right now, especially with cuts and things are happening. They're like, how are you justifying your job and how are you generating revenue? He might be like, dude, I'm boosting tourism.
Honestly, I think I think again, like you poo-pooed the Nessie conferences. I don't know if you actually watched the show, but I actually placed the screen grab from a Nessie conference at Loch Ness that happens every year. I think it's something called Something Quest. The Bigfoot is huge. And so, embracing the weird, celebrating it, making it your official, like your Bigfoot is the official cryptid. Every state should have an official cryptid. Do you know what Nevada's would be?
What?
Yucca Man.
Oh.
We have Yucca Man. But we could also, I think a good, if there was going to be a fight over it, the Lovelock Giants would be up there too. But they weren't really cryptids, because they were dead. They just found bones. But still, it has to be Yucca Man. Yeah. But yeah, every state has one. Every state has one. Fresno, I mean, it's not a state, but it's a city. They have their own cryptid too. It was the Fresno Night Stalker.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
Yeah, it was just like this giant spindly armed white thing that was just meandering through a street. So yeah,
nobody likes spindly white things.
No, they don't. And had a bulbous little sack head. Or actually, no, am I thinking? No. Oh no, I'm sorry. It had these two spindly arms and a giant head, but no real it's it no arms. It's just this kind of walking bag, upside down bag.
That's how I look right now.
That's how you feel, yes. All of us sometimes feel like the Fresno Night Stalker, but we should aim to feel like the Yucca Man, because the Yucca Man lives free, and he lives among the yucca. All right, that's the show. I just feel like it's like a downer now that I have all this Fifth Element stuff in my head. All right.
I might go watch it right now. I still got time.
You're a terrible person. Oddnormal's What in the Weird is a production of KTLU in association with Rotten Baby Media. Until Peter the Roman tells us otherwise, the show is produced by me and Cold Coffee. The show is edited by yours truly on behalf of all those lost souls suffering from paranormal cope. Full episodes are posted to YouTube and Spotify. If you'd like to support the show, use your pyramids of power to get the word out. And while you're at it, do the like and subscribe thing. We have socials at Oddnormal on Blue Sky, TikTok, and most of the other socials. Most of all, thank you for listening, and go live in wonder.
Oddnormal. Oddnormal.